Program Office and other strategic initiatives in the procurement department. Jordan was previously a contract analysis buyer at LLNL and has been with the lab for 4 years. Good morning, Jordan.
Good morning. Hello, everybody. Thank you for having me. I appreciate the invite from Sherry and the Livermore Valley Chamber of Commerce to come speak at this event. As was said, I'm in the Small Business Program Office at Lawrence Livermore. I think a lot of people aren't aware that the lab has a Small Business Program Office, but here we are. On the call with me is John Benjamin. He is the Small Business Program Manager. He's been in that role for 5 years at the laboratory. And so we're here to speak to you today a little bit about what we do in the Small Business Program Office, and then share a little bit of how we would talk to small businesses. We often give presentations like this, not necessarily to such local, close to home individuals. We're often presenting remotely. Even tomorrow, I'm going to be presenting for a small business event happening at one of the DOE sites in Kansas City. But this is a great opportunity to talk to those of you right in our backyard. And again, happy to be here. Let me share my screen. Awesome. So in today's presentation, once it wants to respond to my mouse clicks. Okay, so we're going to talk just a little bit about LLNL, the what, why, and how of small business. Why is this important to the lab? And then like the general tips and tricks we give to small businesses that are interested in doing business with the lab. Over here is a picture of our high explosives application facility, or HEAF, where we do high explosives experiments in support of our national security mission. To kick us off, I'm realizing I actually need to stop sharing my screen. I'm going to stop sharing and share with sound. I apologize. Okay.
2 words. What?
Can everyone hear the video? Yeah, okay, I'll start. It's just a little intro video about what the lab does.
It always starts with 2 words. What if? It's the question that brought us all here. What if we could ensure that the nuclear weapons in our stockpile are safe, secure, and effective without setting one off? We'd do that. What if we had a computer capable of more than 2 quintillion calculations? Yeah, that's a real number, in the time it takes to say 1 Mississippi. We have that. What if we could create a machine that builds specialized materials in different shapes? We built that. What if we could harness fusion, the process that drives the sun, in a lab setting to support national security and take important steps toward a clean energy future? We can, and we did. At Lawrence Livermore, we turn big ideas into reality. We protect our nation. We make the world a better place. We believe curiosity spurs innovation, and innovation turns into impact. In fact, our research on powerful lasers helped enable the newest tiny chips that let you watch this on a handheld device. Color-coding human DNA so we can identify mutations causing diseases like cancer. Combining AI with some of the most powerful supercomputers to find new therapeutics. Creating a first-of-its-kind climate research center to better understand the world around us so future generations can, too. When faced with the world's most complex problems, our diverse teams and partnerships make the impossible possible. And for us, impossible is just the beginning. We shape the future by anticipating new challenges. Because our what-ifs lead to what's next.
Great. So it's just a fun little video highlighting some of the lab's big accomplishments. I'm a little bit of a geek or nerd about what the lab does, and I think it's really cool, the science and technology that we're able to accomplish here at the laboratory. This slide, I know it has a lot of information on it. I just want to focus on a couple of things. So over here on the left, this little rainbow diagram kind of shows how the laboratory fits in with the rest of the Department of Energy national laboratories. You can see we're a multi-purpose national security lab focused on technology, but amongst the 17 national laboratories, there are some that focus more on science and only have more of a single program. And there are 4 national laboratories in the Bay Area. There's Lawrence Livermore and Sandia here in Livermore, and then Lawrence Berkeley, which is connected to UC Berkeley, and then the SLAC National Accelerator Laboratory. That's the Stanford Linear Accelerator that's also owned by the Department of Energy. That's about what I want to cover on that slide. So a few facts about LL&L that are important to set in context about the environment that the Small Business Program Office is operating in here. We're one of the largest DOE national laboratories. We had a $3.3 billion operating budget in our fiscal year 2024, and about a third of that went to procurement spend. So just over $1 billion in buying goods and services for the laboratory. We have over 9,500 employees and over 500 facilities between our 2 sites, our main site here in Livermore and then a remote site out in the hills of Tracy. Basically, you could think of the lab as a small city. We have our own fire department, 9,000 employees, 500 facilities. There's a lot that we need to procure for. We need to support our people. We need to support our programs, our science programs. We need to support our facilities. The laboratory is old. We have a lot of aging infrastructure that needs to be updated. So yeah, a lot of things that need to be procured in support of the lab. Want to highlight our spend profile, what we're buying at the laboratory. So about 70% of our procurement spend is spent by the lab's programs that focus on our science and technology mission. The remaining 30% is spent by operations programs. So that's us in the Small Business Program Office. We're part of one of the operations programs. Our top spend categories were construction. So again, we're building new facilities and renovating old ones. Research and development with educational, public, and private institutions. Laboratory instruments and equipment. I think those last 2 are not surprising as we are a research laboratory. We buy a lot of software and also machined parts. So these are the top 5 categories of things that we buy at the laboratory. Over here on the right is a picture of our advanced manufacturing laboratory. Basically, it's an advanced 3D printing laboratory, but they don't just do standard 3D printing. They're also developing new ways to 3D print with new materials that have never been used in 3D printing. Next, I want to start talking more about why we have a Small Business Program Office and why does the lab care about small business. The first part of that is that we're required to. We are operated by a DOE prime contractor. The name of that contractor is Lawrence Livermore National Security, LLC. That prime contractor in that prime contractor's contract with the DOE, it basically says we're supposed to include small businesses in the procurement process as much as possible. So we have a contractual obligation to award procurements to small businesses as much as possible. We also have institution-wide small business spend goals. So here in the top row, you can see that our total small business spend goal is 45% for fiscal year 25, meaning we want 45% of our total procurement spend to go to small businesses. And then underneath that small business, you can see different small business types or socioeconomic categories that we all have goals for. I'm not going to read them all, they're all on the screen, but you can see we have a wide range of small business types that we care about, everything from women-owned small businesses to service-disabled veteran-owned small businesses. And even though we have this contractual obligation to award to small businesses, our goal in the Small Business Program Office is really to be collaborative with those in our lab, with the scientists, the machinists, everyone at the laboratory, and with the small businesses that are trying to do business with us. Some of the other national laboratories their Small Business Program Office is more compliance driven, but we like to take a more collaborative approach. So we're not telling people in the laboratory that they have to do business with small businesses. We do have procurement rules that dictate, when and how we do business with small businesses, but we in the Small Business Program Office aren't telling people what to do. We're inviting, we're explaining, we're bringing others along on the small business journey with us, and we find that that's what works best for Lawrence Livermore. Probably the more important reason that we care about small businesses is the impact that we can make on the small business community. This table has a lot of information, but if I want to draw your attention to the highlighted row at the bottom. So in fiscal year 24 in Livermore, the lab spent just over $30 million total in procurement spend. $21 million of that went to small businesses. That's almost 70% of our spend in Livermore going to small businesses. And that was spent with almost 40 different small businesses in Livermore. So that's the kind of impact we're having just here locally. And you can see on the top line, the total procurement spend, we spent $497 million with small businesses last year. And we exceeded our 45% small business spend goal. We got just over 46%. And we spent money with over 1,200 different small businesses. So this, at least from John and I's perspective in the Small Business Program Office, this is why we try to spend money with small businesses, is because we're making an impact here locally, here in Alameda and San Joaquin counties, where the lab is located in the state of California, and then more broadly across the US. We're actually impacting small businesses and the lives of the owners of those small businesses. Some other small business highlights. Last year, 270 new small businesses received a procurement award from the lab. So that's 270 small businesses that we had never purchased from before. And also last year, all new construction projects were awarded to small businesses. So that's $75 million worth of construction projects for new construction awarded to small businesses last year. So I just think that's really cool. So we talk a lot about numbers. We have our spend, we have our small business percentages, we have these goals, but we don't focus on the numbers to focus on the numbers, but they help us push to spending as much money as possible with small businesses, and it can help us tell the story of the impact. So we're not necessarily focused on numbers, we're not focused on compliance, but the numbers can help us do better at our job of prioritizing small business when possible. A follow-up question, if you're not familiar with how small businesses are identified as far as the federal government is concerned. So there are two parts to this. First, we need to understand NAICS codes. That's the North American Industry Classification System. These are codes that the federal government uses to classify business establishments. The lab uses these codes to classify each procurement that we make based on the types of goods or service being purchased. And then for each of those codes, the federal government has established a small business size standard. And that size standard is either employee count or business revenue. And I'll actually show you some examples on the next slide. But it's important to understand that small businesses aren't just mom and pop shops or garage startups. That's a common misconception that we see here at the lab, but also outside of the lab. Essentially, if you're not a multinational or a national corporate entity, you're probably a small business in our eyes and in the eyes of the federal government. Here's an example of some of our top NAICS code spend categories and the size standard. So that top line, if you're a construction general contractor and you make less than $45 million a year, you're a small business. If you manufacture computers or you resell computers and you have less than 1,200 employees, you're a small business. So essentially, if you have somewhere less than 5 to 1,000 employees and you make less than tens of millions of dollars a year in revenue, you're probably a small business. These numbers may seem somewhat arbitrary. I'm sure that the federal government put research in determining where the threshold was. We need to draw the line somewhere as far as determining what what qualifies as small business and what doesn't. But again, it's not about the numbers. We're trying to impact real people's lives, real small businesses. Moving on to the doing business portion with the lab, these are some slides that we would share when we're presenting to different small businesses. I would be remiss to not include a photo of the National Ignition Facility, or NIF. That's our big laser system that is working towards achieving clean energy, fusion energy. I'm not going to talk about these tips in depth, but essentially when we're talking to different small businesses, our first point, make it easy for us to find you when we're doing a market survey or looking for different suppliers. We have a way that they can fill out our prospective supplier form, and that makes it easier for us to find them. They can also contact us in the Small Business Program Office. We also ask small businesses to ask questions if they don't understand the requirements of a procurement, and then be on time, be communicative, ultimately have good customer service and make it easy for the lab to do business with you. And then we're more likely to continue to do business with you after the fact. Lastly, just want to talk about the different ways that small businesses can learn about upcoming opportunities. So we post some of our opportunities on our website that's called sam.gov. That's a federal website where different federal entities post upcoming opportunities. Again, we also have a prospective supplier form that small businesses can fill out. We do post some of our upcoming construction opportunities on our external facing website. And if a construction contractor wants to become pre-qualified to do work on site, they can contact us. And then small businesses can also reach out directly to us in our Small Business Program Office. The picture over here on the right is from our quantum computing program. This is one of our quantum computers. Lastly, this is just our contact information. So our email address is pretty simple, smallbusiness@llnl.gov. That's how you can get a hold of both John and I. That's it as far as my presentation goes. Do people have questions?
Any questions for Jordan? I know that we will fill out that form for our transportation company and our audiovisual company.
There you go.
Others do
Sweet.
here as well. So thank you. We appreciate that information and your
Yeah,
presentation.
no problem.
Any questions for anybody, any of our presenters?
I have a question actually.
Yeah, Jackson.
If you guys wouldn't mind, just kind of going over how the new administration has affected maybe those numbers that you showed us, in terms of maybe money that's available, percentage of money to specific types of businesses, and or just like the availability of contracts that you guys have.
Sure. John,
Yeah.
you want to take that one?
Yeah, I
Thanks.
can take that one. Hello, everyone. My name is John Benjamin. I'm the Small Business Program Manager. I work with Jordan here at the lab. So we sit in the middle between the private sector and the public sector. So the executive orders came out. There was an immediate, obvious impact on the federal government. But since we are government-owned, contractor-operated, we operate based off of our prime contract with the DOE. And so our goals are negotiated separately from the federal government's general small business goal. So that's a long way to say that our goals and numbers have not been impacted. It's not to say that they won't in some future states, but for us, it's been business as usual with the percentages in which we're responsible for. And our spend is, for the most part, is based on whether or not the federal government can pass a budget or if we're in continuing resolution. So as long as the government has either passed a budget and has us in continuing resolution, we're responsible for our goals as negotiated on a year-by-year basis. I don't expect there to be much change in our goals at the laboratories. The way it works is The federal agencies like the Department of Energy have their own small business spend goals. And a lot of the ways that DOE makes their spend goal is through the small business programs of the national laboratories. So while a federal DOE spend goal for small business may be 5 or 10%, ours will stay 45, 50, 60% so that the DOE can make that 5% goal. So even if the DOE's goals shift, since the national laboratories kind of make up the largest percentage of spend within their goals, I kind of don't see a shift in what our goals and spend might be in this area.
Jody, I have a question.
Sure, David.
The Trump administration seems to be discouraging emphasis on diversity. And in one of your slides, you're talking about small businesses owned by women, small businesses owned by veterans. Have you got any information or pressure to do away with those types of slices of the small business pie?
Not as of yet. There have been no pressures to make any changes. We're still operating off of what's in the federal acquisition regulation that kind of steers how we determine who fits in these social economic categories. So until there are changes in the FAR or we hear from our contracting office, we don't expect any changes, but you never know. As of now, we've had no pressure to change our goals or change the way that we operate, but it is to be seen. There's always a chance something can happen, but as of yet, we are still business as usual.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So I just have a comment real quick. Jordan, John, thank you so much for being with us here this morning. We appreciate you taking the time to educate us on your office. I know I didn't even know that there was a small business office over at the laboratory until I met you last year. And thank you for sharing that information. I think it's valuable to the community to understand, where the procurement comes from, what your goals are. And I do want to let everybody know that we're going to take this one step further. We're going to host a panel in August this summer, where we're going to have some representatives from Lawrence Livermore, Jordan and John, and then also some representatives, hopefully from Sandia Laboratory and from the city of Livermore, that are going to talk to our members, our business owners, about doing business with these laboratories and the city. And there are opportunities here that most people don't realize for their businesses, because there is a lot of different, they're not just procuring machine parts and microscope lenses and stuff like that. They need other things like toilet paper and paper towels and, carpet and all that kind of stuff. So we're excited about having further discussion about this particular topic and looking for the opportunities for the business owners in the area. So stay tuned for all of that information.
All right, anything else? We just want to thank you all for attending today's meeting. Jordan, John, thank you both for the presentation. Your participation and valuable input are essential to the growth of our community. So thank you both for that. We truly appreciate the time and effort you all make to making a difference. And I'm looking forward to our next meeting on May 7th with a presentation from Tri-Valley Conservancy. Thank you all and have a great rest of your week.
Thank you. Everybody. Take care.
Bye, y'all.